I want you to imagine something. Picture the coldest, most brutal winter you can think of. Now imagine you're sitting inside a freezing steel box, surrounded by nothing but dense, snow-covered forest. The place is the Ardennes. The time is December 1944, and if you're a German soldier, you believe your tanks, these marvels of engineering, are the kings of this battlefield. They should be unstoppable. But something's wrong. There's something else out there in the woods, a new kind of hunter, and it doesn't play by any of the rules you thought you knew.
Now this is where it gets real. This isn't from some official report. This is pulled from the personal diary of a German tanker. You can almost feel the chill in his words, and it's not just from the winter air. Imagine being him. You're crewing a Panther tank, a 45-ton beast that's the terror of the Eastern and Western fronts. Yet you're writing about being the one who's hunted. You hear a sound, an engine, a gunshot, but you see nothing. By the time you crank your massive turret around to where you think the sound came from, there's just silence, emptiness. They're already gone. He's writing in a state of fear and total confusion.
And really, that's the core question here, isn't it? For years, the German panzers, the Tigers, the Panthers, they were the apex predators. They were the ones everyone else was afraid of. They were the monsters in the dark. So what in the world could possibly flip the script so completely? What could make these fearsome hunters suddenly become the prey?
To really grasp how shocking this was, you first have to understand just how dominant German armor really was. I mean, their entire approach to war was built around these machines. They were technological masterpieces, mobile fortresses designed to be the best. They set the standard.
Okay, let's just talk about what these numbers actually mean in the real world. A Tiger I tank at 57 tons. It's just a monster. Its front armor was 100 millimeters of solid steel. Most Allied tank shells would literally just bounce right off of it. And the Panther's 80 millimeters of armor was sloped, which made it even more effective. Then you have the guns. The Tiger's 88 millimeter cannon was legendary. It could kill an American Sherman tank from over a mile away, long before the Sherman was even in range to fire back. These things were designed from the ground up to be invincible killing machines.
So, faced with these steel behemoths, what was the American plan? Did they try to build an even bigger, even heavier tank? Nope, they did the exact opposite. They went in a direction so radical, so counterintuitive, that to a German engineer it must have looked completely, utterly suicidal. They built a glass cannon.
And this slide just lays it all out. Just look at the difference. The thing hunting those 45-ton Panthers was this vehicle, the M18 Hellcat. First, the weight. Less than 18 tons. That's a lightweight compared to the heavyweight Panther. Then, the armor. Look at that number, 12.7 millimeters. That's basically paper. But then you get to that last line. Top speed, 55 miles per hour. Let that sink in. That's highway speed in a tracked vehicle. In 1944, the Hellcat wasn't designed to take a punch, it was designed to never get hit in the first place.
To be crystal clear here, 12.7 millimeters is half an inch. Half an inch. We're not talking about a cannon shell, a heavy machine gun could punch holes in this thing. To a German design team who obsessed over armor thickness, this was absolute madness. It violated every single principle of armored warfare they held dear. Why would anyone in their right mind send men into battle in something so ridiculously vulnerable?
Because, and this is the absolute key to the whole story, the Americans weren't trying to build a better tank. They were building something else entirely. It was the physical embodiment of a brand new, radical idea, the tank destroyer doctrine. And the motto says it all: seek, strike, and destroy. The plan was never to go head-to-head with a Tiger. The plan was to use speed to find the enemy, hit them from the side or the rear where their armor was weakest, and then be gone before they even knew what hit them. For a Hellcat crew, armor wasn't a sheet of steel. Their armor was speed.
So what does this philosophy actually look like on a cold, muddy battlefield? How does speed as life work when cannon shells are flying? Well, it all came down to a simple, and for the Germans, a terrifyingly short window of time. Let's call it 3-minute warfare. Let's just walk through the brutal math of an engagement. The clock starts now. At 0 seconds, a Hellcat ambushes a Panther and fires. By the 30-second mark, that Hellcat is already moving, relocating to a new firing position. That's the famous shoot and scoot tactic. Now, switch perspectives. In the German Panther, the crew is stunned. They're trying to figure out where the shot came from. It takes their huge, heavy turret a full 60 seconds just to make one complete circle. So in the 3 minutes it might take that German crew to spot the muzzle flash, traverse their turret, aim, and finally fire back, the Hellcat is already a mile and a half down the road setting up its next ambush. It's not a fair fight because they're not even playing the same game.
Okay, so the theory is brilliant, but does it work in practice? Against the best Germany has to offer? The first big test came in September of '44, at a place called Ericourt in France. This was it, the ultimate proving ground. The radical new American doctrine versus elite, battle-hardened German panzer brigades. On paper, the Germans should have wiped the floor with them.
The result? A kill ratio of 5.6 to 1 in favor of the Americans. They knocked out 39 German tanks and lost only 4 M18s. The doctrine worked. The speed, the tactics, they completely overwhelmed the superior German armor and firepower. The German crews were left confused, their powerful tanks burning, having been hit by ghosts they never even saw.
Which brings us right back to where we started, back to that German tanker in the frozen Ardennes forest. The Battle of the Bulge became the Hellcat's most defining moment. This was Germany's last desperate gamble, a massive armored punch meant to split the Allied armies. And standing in their way were these lightweight, fast-moving tank destroyers.
And the numbers from that battle are just staggering. At the Siege of Bastogne, the 705th Tank Destroyer Battalion achieved a kill ratio of nearly 7 to 1. They destroyed around 40 German tanks for the loss of just 6 Hellcats. These crews acted like a battlefield fire brigade. When a German armored column broke through, the Hellcats would race to the crisis point, hit the enemy column from the flanks, cause chaos, and then disappear back into the fog and snow. They were absolutely essential in holding the line. But here's the thing. If you walk away from this thinking the Hellcat itself was the secret weapon, you're only seeing part of the picture. The vehicle was incredible, no doubt. But the real secret weapon wasn't the machine, it was the entire system, the entire philosophy that built it and put it on the field.
Just look at these production numbers. Germany built magnificent, over-engineered masterpieces, but they couldn't build them fast enough. For every one irreplaceable Tiger tank they lost, the U.S. was churning out dozens of Shermans and Hellcats. America wasn't just fighting a war of tactics, it was fighting a war of production, and it was a war that Germany's boutique manufacturing style was destined to lose against America's industrial might.
And that industrial power fueled a much smarter system. It's one thing to have a fast tank, it's another to have crews trained for 17 weeks specifically on how to use that speed. It's great to have a powerful engine, but the Hellcats was also incredibly reliable, unlike the fragile German designs that were always breaking down. You need fuel and spare parts, delivered by the legendary Red Ball Express. And maybe most important of all, communication. Good radios allowed scattered Hellcats to coordinate their attacks, hunting like a pack of wolves instead of lone predators. In the mud and snow of the Bulge, its low weight meant it could go places the heavy German tanks simply couldn't. It was the whole package.
And here is the great, beautiful irony of this whole story. Germany's obsession with making bigger, heavier, invincible tanks was the very thing that made them so vulnerable. Every extra ton of armor made them slower, thirstier for fuel, and more likely to get stuck in the mud or break a bridge. They were designing the perfect enemy for the Hellcats' way of fighting. They were building castles in a world that now belonged to assassins.
You know, one historian described the Hellcat as poorly balanced. And if you're looking at it like a traditional tank, he's absolutely right. It sacrificed everything for speed. But that misses the point entirely. That imbalance wasn't a flaw in the design. It was the design. It was a deliberate, radical choice. And what looked like its biggest weakness turned out to be its most profound strength. And the final score proves it. When all the battles were over and all the numbers were counted, the M18 Hellcat had the highest kill-to-loss ratio of any American tank or tank destroyer of the entire war, 2.4 to 1. The glass cannon didn't just work, it dominated.
And this story doesn't just end in 1945. The ghost of the Hellcat is still with us. Its core philosophy, using speed and agility as your primary weapon in defense, is the direct ancestor of modern armored doctrine. The idea of shoot and scoot is fundamental to how vehicles like the M1 Abrams tank or the Bradley fighting vehicle are taught to fight and survive. The lessons learned in the Ardennes are still shaping battlefields today.
When you boil it all down, the story of the Hellcat teaches us a timeless lesson about strategy. Germany built the best, strongest weapon for the war they wanted to fight, a head-on clash of steel titans. America built the right weapon for the war they were actually in, a messy, chaotic war of movement, logistics, and ambush. And it proves that victory doesn't always go to the strongest. It goes to the one who understands the nature of the fight.
And that leaves us with one final, provocative question, one that applies far beyond the military. In your work, in your life,
When is the pursuit of the best, the biggest, the most powerful solution actually the wrong answer? The Hellcat is proof that sometimes the true breakthrough comes not from building something stronger, but from being smarter, faster, and having the courage to build something completely different. Sometimes, winning is about knowing what you can live without.